Hi, welcome to the Dieku podcast. I'm Gary Snow. Today, welcome back Kobayashi, the designer of Fleaux, Rats in the Walls, Black Sword Hack, Ronin Saga, and now the most recent game, Assassins, Demons, and Dying Gods, a role-playing game about demon hunters, mad gods, and revolutions in the city of Ashengrad. Kobayashi, welcome.
Hello, Gary. Nice to see you again.
Well, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. I think last time I had you on, we were talking about Black Sword Hack, and that really, I think, struck a chord with a lot of different people. Every time somebody talks about it, they're always like giving it glowing praises. So it was early days when it was coming out. How's the reception been for it?
So far, reception I think is good because the Merry Marshman told me I think they sold. I don't want to say something false, but I think it's 2 print runs, so more than 5,000 copies, something like that. So it really, it picked up well. We had Philip Reed, who did a small supplement for it on the TTRPG. He added more spells, I think, some things like that. We don't see much adventures yet, but yeah, it seems people seem to like the game, I'd say.
Cool.
And to play the game also.
I've got a copy right here, and it is absolutely beautiful and great design, and just everything kind of sings, at least as far as I'm concerned. It just like works together so nicely, and just to flip through it, and like for those people at home and watching on video and not just necessarily audio, I'll just kind of flip through it and just like kind of showcases. So this is a Mushman published, but you designed, and it brings everything together just so nicely. And
yes,
overall,
Baran, who did the illustrations, he just outdid himself. It's excellent.
Well, I keep seeing it in the forums and in the chitter chatter that goes on there of like anytime like a cool game comes up, everybody goes, "Oh, try Black Sword Hack." It's like it's right up there with some of the classics and some of the more popular ones, like say Into the Odd, I would say at this point. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. And yes, a nice side effect was that the sales of the first edition of the game they picked as well. So it was a bit. I didn't expect that, but yeah, many people went for the first edition too.
And we were talking before we hit record at the beginning, and you also had a game in between now and Assassins here. Of Ronin, and sorry, this one kind of flew under my radar, but
that's normal because I think I already said that the last time I'm just so bad at marketing. I don't do much social media because, quite frankly, I prefer to write games and post tweets. So or things like that. And I didn't do a Kickstarter for this one, but I worked with the layout. It was Edgar who did the layout on Fleaux.
Okay.
For that, and I was very lucky. An old friend of mine, she now works at she works now for quite some time at Pixar, and she did the illustration. So at least I'd say the game looks good.
So,
but yes, it flew under the radar of many people. Very few people seem to know that the game was released.
Well, hopefully we're gonna change that today. So, what inspired you to like? Did you always have a fascination with like samurai culture or Japanese culture?
Oh, it's how to say that? It's just I for a very long time I wanted to make a Japanese inspired game, fantasy game, but I didn't want it to be too, I'd say, too serious, a bit like maybe a kind of anime kind of logic, or like a cartoon, something that doesn't take itself too seriously. There are no rules for honor or ritual suicide, in Ronin Saga. It's just adventures mostly. And but yeah, my French audience at the time, because I think the first time I talked about the game, it was maybe like 10 years ago, and they told me, when are you going to release it? And I never found the time to write it. So it was, and when finally I got behind my computer to write the game, yes, it was done in one less than a month, I think, something like that. But yes, I wanted to have something light, you know. Okay, you want to play a samurai and you have katana, but it's kind of a Saturday morning cartoon kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
And your writing process, like how much, like, you know, it's obviously a beautiful layout here. How much do you hand off when you write? Do you go, this should be on its own page, like, you know, like these kind of smaller pieces of text with art, or how much is it just like a steady stream and then you hand it over to layout?
Yeah, usually I have because I have a background in press. I worked as an editor, as a staff writer as well. So I kind of understand how layout works, and so yeah, I give usually very precise indication to the layout artist to make sure that yes, this goes on one page, this goes on one page, this should be a spread, etc., etc. Yes,
And we
it's a
also
kind of thing.
before we hit record, we had a lot of good conversation before we hit record, apparently. I was asking you, you know, how do you juggle like all this? You're very productive, and how do you juggle it all with a full-time job? And then you told me this is now
So,
your full-time job. That's great.
yeah, yeah, because you know I think we are about the same age. I'm 52.
Yep, same.
And you know, yes, so I've worked for a very long time as a staff writer. Most of the time, very, very boring work. And now I said to myself, no, okay, you know, life is too short, and I want to make what I love. So for now, I can make a small living. Small living, you know, it's not. I'm not a billionaire yet, but I can make a small living out of it, and it's um, the freedom that it gives me really changes a lot of things. It's and it did a really good thing too for my creativity as well, and also you know I have time now to read books like. So my English gets a little better, you know.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. Like, how difficult is it? Do you write in English first, and then, or do you write in French first and then translate it? How does that work for you?
I write directly in English, and yeah, the ideas now come to me in English, not with that accent that you hear now, because of course in my head I speak perfect English, and yeah, usually I start in English right away, right away. I think it was a Black Sword Act. Even when I wrote the Black Sword Act, I was thinking, oh, if someone has to translate this in French, it's gonna be very tough. And I ended up being the one who translated it in French. So yeah, me. But yeah.
And I guess I'm pretty impressed with that, because like when I look at some of the, especially like the poetic pieces that you put together, like it's very, you would never guess that English is your second language, because like it's very poetic, impactful, and you just have a way with like describing it. And especially that intro I'll talk about later in Assassins, Demons, and Dying Gods. I just love that first like page where you talk about like the actual the structure or the feel of the game. It just sets the tone almost immediately. It when I and do you ever get, now that you're doing it full time, do you ever get almost like you don't like it as far as like as a job? They always say never turn your hobby into a job, because then and sometimes it's like I don't want to do it.
There is, yes, there is a slight change that is, okay, I have bills to pay, so I have to release games. You know, there's no, I cannot afford to tell myself, I'll write something when I have an idea. No, no. Now I have to sit in front of my desk and say, okay, I have to write a game. But usually it's always the same. I want to write a game that I want to play with my friends. But it kind of, yes, there is a, always at the back of your head, okay, you have to release games because you have to pay your bills. That, yes, change things a little bit, but at the same time, it's not like working in the mine. You wake up in the morning and okay, I'm gonna write a role-playing game. Woo, nice. It's not that bad, to be honest.
Yeah, not a bad problem to have.
No.
The other thing that we also talked about prior to the start of the recording, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. So when did you put out your first game? What year was that? Like approximately?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was a small, quick start for Unlikely Gentleman. It was a pay what you want because, of course, at the time, of still, frankly, I'm no one because many people know of the Black Sword Hack, but they don't know it's by me. They don't know it's Kobayashi, and. So my first little game, yes, I think it was. I don't want to say anything stupid, but I'd say it's 10 years ago, maybe something like that. I'd have to check out, but 10 years ago seems, seems right.
Oh, and that the reason I asked that question is kind of it leads into my next part of that is when you first design something. And like, I see a lot of indie designers come on my show and they want to talk about their game and that kind of stuff. And they're missing the eyeballs or the platform in order to share it. And to the point of it, I kind of joked about it. When you're first starting out, you're like, here's my free game, please just take it. And everybody just kind of shrugs their shoulders and goes, eh. What's the big deal about it? Like, I can't be bothered to look at it.
Well, yeah, one thing you learn very fast is free is not the way to go. I don't know why, because it seems well. And then I say that a game like Cairn is free and it worked very well. So maybe I'm wrong here, but I'd say most of the time it seems to me that when it's free, people assume that it doesn't have a value.
Yeah,
because it's free. So they download it. It sits on their computer, and most of the time they don't bother reading it. And I had much more success, with cheap games. Most of my first games PDF are $5, I'd say, and then things started to pick up. In fact, but how to say that. I think that when you write role-playing games, it's a form of art. It's an art form. And not to be, to be pretentious about it. It's just art is expressing your imagination through a specific media. The media that you and I chose is role-playing games. And when you think like that, it kind of frees you of a lot of thoughts, negative thoughts. Because basically, when I sit to my desk and write, I don't care how many eyeballs I will have. I don't care if people will like it or not like it. I don't care if it's sexy or not sexy. I want to write something about something that matters to me, or that I found amusing, and basically I keep throwing things against the wall until something sticks. But clearly, if you do this expecting to have an audience right away, it can happen. Good things happen to good people. But I'd say don't write or don't create games with that expectation. Write games because you enjoy it. That's because it's basic. When a basic teachings in every art form, you do this because you like it, not because you expect to become successful or rich or whatever. You do it because, okay. But of course, as we mentioned before, if it doesn't work at all, if I cannot pay my bills with that, then I'll find I don't know, another stupid job, and but I'll still be writing games. I don't care.
Well, you bring up the interesting point of, like as an example, Karen is free, and then there's Into the Odd, and I find that particular story very interesting because essentially Karen is Into the Odd, for the most part, and but anytime I hear Karen hack, I'm like, well, isn't it Into the Odd hack? And I think what Yohai has done extremely well, probably better than almost anybody else, is build community around the game. And so that's the free version of it, and like continuously, sharing, promoting, and like encouraging people to talk about Karen, and that goes a long way into like establishing it to the fact that when people say Karen hack and you go, oh, like, it's kind of based on Into the Odd, and they go, into the what? I've never heard of that. And it's kind of one of those things that community, I find, if you can build a community around your game, that like really helps sell it. But that takes a lot of work, a lot of hours.
Yeah. It's not something like as you say, a lot of work, and and though I love when we do interviews like that. I love to talk with people when I meet people at conventions, things like that. But if you make me sit in front of a Discord page, my eyes will start to bleed in about 2 minutes. I can do that. And I know, because many times people, where is the Discord for your games? And I don't have one now. I just entered the 21st century. I have a BlueSky account, and I think it's as far as I go. So I'm not doing myself any favors as well. But yes, if you are good at community management, it will be easier also to give a boost to your games. I don't do it because I'm stupid, but if you know how to do it, yes, of course, it will help your games a lot, clearly.
Well, it reminds me of, I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan, and I also do film work. And so I'm always kind of like, I dabble in both worlds almost equally, I would say. For me, like, I'm always like, in all the forums and the chats and on watching videos and stuff. And the one quote that always stuck out to me about Quentin Tarantino, and like, he'd always have these film students come up to him and go, well, how do I get my film out there? How do I market it? And how do I, like, get it into festivals? And he'd go, you make a fucking good movie. That's what you do, is you make a goddamn fucking good movie. And I always kind of like hear that in the back of my mind of like, you can build community, you can do all the social media posts you want, and obviously it's helpful, but it is also time consuming. And then if you have to wrestle with how much energy do you put into making a goddamn fucking good game versus making a community, you're torn on that.
Yeah, because at what moment it was only in French. It was a long time ago. I had a blog, and then I suddenly realized, the time I take to write a blog post, I can write 2 pages for a game, or 3 or 4 or something else. And so I had to ask myself, what do you like to do? Do you like to write blog posts, or do you like to write games? So okay, write games. Blogs, okay, bye. I admire people who are able, to do all these things at once, but just I can't do that. So that's why, as you say, Ronin Saga went completely under the radar, because basically I posted it in on DriveThruRPG, maybe a post on Facebook, and that was it. That was my whole marketing plan for the game.
Do you regret that as far as going right to drive-through? Like, do you wish you would have done a Kickstarter for it? Because that's also another good avenue to actually get eyeballs on it.
I think I should have done a Kickstarter for it because the game is looking good, and I think it would have worked well for a Kickstarter. But as I said, it was such a long project in the making that I was happy. Okay, now it's done. Please go. But now clearly, yeah. Especially for people like me, yes, Kickstarter is a very good platform to let people know about your game. Yeah.
Well, it looks fabulous. I've been kind of just flipping through it for those listening on audio. If you want to go over to my YouTube channel at Dieku Games there, you can check it out. But I've been flipping through it, and it is just like absolutely spectacular. It looks great. And I almost like one of those things where I can't believe it flew under the radar. But in this essence, maybe it's going to be like one of those cult classics that it just kind of sits there, and then eventually 5 years from now, everybody's going to kind of rediscover it.
As long as it is not after my death, it will be happy.
Well, don't say that, because I'm the same age as you, and I'm going to be like worried about that now. But anyways, fabulous look. And sorry, you're is it how do you pronounce it? Is it Melody?
Melody
Yeah,
Sizinski.
Melody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fabulous work, and you can see I think there's some like probably free domain public art kind of in there. It's done very well with the layout too, and so fabulous game. But the one thing I want to talk about today in particular is assassins, demons, and dying gods, because you did do that as a Kickstarter in December. And you were successful at it. And I'm just gonna, if you'll indulge me, I'm gonna try to get into my like poet, deep, dark voice. So I'm gonna read the opening intro here. You are dying. You awake amid the ruins of your city, flapping in the wind as flags are the flayed skins of its inhabitants. You hear the voice of a god. This is how the world ends. You ask why, but the god only shows how. Demons living among us, wearing our flesh as masks, murdering our future one crime at a time. Unless you kill them first. You now walk in gaslit streets of Ashengrad, reading a newspaper that reports your latest crime. They call you a murderer, an assassin, a monster. You are also humanity's salvation. A dying god told you so. So pretty, as I mentioned, pretty poetic for your second language. How did the idea of this game come to be?
It must be the most convoluted birth for a game. It was. I think I did everything wrong until I get to the idea. Last August, I was considering working on a new game, and at first I was started to work on a game based on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. And I write. 1 month go. And after 1 month, I read my stuff, and no, it's not good. It's not good. It's not original. It's been done to death. It's stupid. I should have done that. So next month, I try finding another idea, but nothing comes, and I end up in in my couch, and I start playing. I put a video game, and it's Postal. I don't know if you know that game.
Mm-mm.
Very, very stupid game from the 90s. Basically, you are some guy in the suburbs in America, and you wake up and you decide to kill all your neighbors, all the police, and each stage you go to another place and you kill everyone.
So going postal kind of, okay.
Yeah, completely. And so I have a good laugh because it is a stupid game that doesn't take itself too seriously. And then, yes, but what about, yes, a role-playing game, yes, where the players kill people thinking they are the good guys, but maybe they are not. Might be interesting, but then if I do that in the present day, no, that's a bit tasteless, and I wasn't comfortable with the idea. It's a bit too close to comfort for many people, I think.
Yeah.
So after that, okay, so yes, in the past, yes, early 20th century, and of course, because we have most of us gamers who have the same kind of references that pop up in our mind. First thing I think of is London. And of course, after that, I said to myself, no, it's stupid. London, early 20th century, steampunk, blah, blah, blah. It's been done to death. I don't want to write that. And then I watch my a bookshelf, and I have a small guide, Russian guide about St. Petersburg. I think to myself, yes, and and then everything falls into place. It's one of these moments. Okay, now I can sit in front of the computer, and okay, everything falls down at the right place at the right time. So, but yes, I lost almost 2 months just to arrive at the right idea. So a bit stupid, but
Well, I love it when that kind of stuff happens. Usually for me, it's like I'm on a walk or something like that, and then my head's clear, or I see something like your book that you mentioned on your bookshelf that kind of clicks. And so it's kind of set in the early 1900s, in kind of, I'll call it Soviet era, because like I think my response to you when you sent it to me was like, oh, it feels so like brutalist. And so I mean, probably before the brutalist era, but it just kind of has that kind of cold, like St. Petersburg, like cold winter kind of feel to it, and peasants, early days of communism. But the idea behind it, just give us the premise. Like there's a god called the Guardian. Explain that for us.
yeah. So spoilers ahead.
Okay, sorry.
But, so basically, yes, you play a character that just went through a near-death experience, and during this experience, we had the vision. The text that you just read, or basically there is an entity that calls itself Guardian, tells you, yes, there are demons around you. He can show them to you. And if you want to save the world, you have to kill them. But there are two conditions. Is when he shows you the demon you have to kill, you have only 3 days to kill it. Because Guardian said that he's so weak, he has been so weakened by the demons, that he cannot let you survive if you fail your mission. He has to give his energy to somebody else to do the job, basically. So, but what you quickly realize is, so then it depends on how the GM wants to run the game. But you may, so a very classic setup, okay, so we are demon hunters in Imperial Russia. But soon you start to think that maybe the people that you are killing, maybe they are not demons. So when you start to ask yourself these questions, if you ever do, you go down the rabbit hole. And that's why, unlike my other games, there is a kind of a meta plot, I would say, in the game. There is an end game for your campaign where you learn who Guardian is and what he has made you do, what you do. But if the GM wants, you can pretty much fuck up with your players at the beginning. Oh, it's so cool! We're demon hunters. Yes, kill the baker. Why? Because he's a demon. But he's a baker. Looks like a demon to me. What do you do? Okay, we kill him. Okay. And then until suddenly oh my God, we are murderers. So a bit cruel, but I wish I had taken a picture of my players when they realized that maybe they were not the good guys. It was kind of priceless.
Yeah, it is that "Are we the baddies?" Joke
Yeah.
at the end of it, and uh, and are the characters like, I mean, I guess morally gray, right? Or do they actually believe that they are doing the right things, or are they just like trying to make it through the day and kind of like Blades in the Dark, that they're morally gray, they're just trying to survive?
Uh, to be honest, when the way you create characters, so your characters, they don't have any special powers. They're really people who come from every walk of life. Regular people. So it's not that they are morally gray. I think the way you present things at the beginning of the campaign, so you have a vision, and someone tells you, a god tells you that they are demons. And when you look at some people, you feel like you're seeing demons. So in all good faith, at the beginning, yes, you start killing people left and right. But once again, as the game goes, because I don't know, if your first target is a guy who is a crime lord, you say, oh, okay, yes, he's a demon, he's a crime lord, so yeah, we are doing a good thing. Or he's a guy who works for the secret police, we kill him, yes, he's a demon, it's a good thing, the guy is a bastard. But then it asks you to kill an astronomer, and then you say, why? Because he's a demon. So then, what choice do you have? Because still you have 3 days to kill him, or you die. So there is a whole chapter aimed at the GM. So what happens when the characters start to maybe investigate what happens to them? Has it happened to somebody else? When? Why? How did it end? That's kind of the second chapter of your campaign. And then the final chapter is when you confront Guardian. But yes, it's not that the characters are morally gray. At first they're tricked, and the thing is, what do they do when they realize they have been tricked?
Does that make the game a little bit difficult for replayability, because once the spoiler, sorry for the spoiler alert, once the spoiler is out there, they kind of
Yes,
take on the second part of that?
Yes, it's basically a one campaign game, I would say. Then, if I say so myself, the setting can be pretty rich, so you can do other things with it. But yes, as written, yes, the game is meant to be played in one campaign.
Yeah. And I was actually going to say that the setting itself of Ashengrad, it's like a nice sandbox. Like, I would be willing to throw like characters into that setting just as like see what happens, because it's such a rich environment. And probably could be a setting in any Into the Odd or compatible game, really.
Just the fact that basically the setting is Imperial Russia just before the Communist Revolution, basically. So you can play just that if you want, because there are even, I'd say, rules and events for that in the game. If you want to play only that, it's completely possible. And yes, as you meant, yes, for Bastion Land, things like that, you can totally say that, yes, Ashengrad is this city which is far away from Bastion Land or something like that. Yes, I think it would work pretty well.
And I always love it in all your games where you put out like the listen, play, read section to immediately make people know, okay, like this is how I should kind of feel to play it. So I just wanted to call that out, and I've had it on the screen here for a bit. So take a look at that. If any of those media properties kind of seem interesting to you, maybe this game is for you. And even the layout and the style of it, it's a lot more reserved, and like I kind of said to you, it's like got that brutalist kind of feel to it, the minimalist kind of feel to it. Was that in intention that you said this is the way I want it to feel?
So this is what happens when I'm left alone to do the layout. But yes, it's I already knew it would be a game with a lot of text and very few images, because I wanted the text to do most of the thing, and basically I wanted maybe the book to look like, it doesn't look like that, but be inspired by books from the early 20th century, almost like a timepiece coming from that world, from that setting. Something very clean, very readable, but as you say, at the same time a bit brutalist, a bit in French we say austère, but yes, not very joyful, but efficient. I was aiming for that. I'd say.
Well, I think it's a good fit for the game and works really well. And then I already kind of alluded to it as far as it being compatible, but so you chose the Into the Odd mechanics, and maybe explain why you actually decided to go down that path.
First of all, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Into the Odd, and when I started thinking about the campaign and the setting, I realized, there is it's going to be difficult for a GM to grasp, because there are a lot. It's not a big game. It's 132 pages, but I think it's packed with a lot of information. And the way you have to run the game, you have to improvise a lot as a GM, because there's no way to predict what your players will do. Basically, when you want to run a game and this happened to you, and then you can pick or roll for a target for the players, and then you start playing. So a lot of improvisation. So I wanted to have a system that didn't get in the way at all, especially for the GM. Something that it runs in the background and it's enough to run the game, but most of your as they say now, cognitive load is needed for the setting, for the NPCs, for the consequences, many things, but I didn't want the cognitive load to be taken up by rules. And so for me, as minimalist games goes, Into the Odd is really up there. And it still gives you enough structure, so it's not random stuff that happens at the table. So yeah, I picked Into the Odd especially for that.
I can't help but notice there's an insect friend in the front row of this picture here.
Yeah.
Can you explain the insects?
Oh yes, it's so I won't spoil it this time, but yes, you among the population of Ashengrad there are insect people, and basically no one knows where they come from. It seems like they've always been here. They always have low jobs, the lowest jobs, clerk jobs, menial jobs, and people don't pay much attention to them. And the only thing that everyone knows, if you attack an insect, you are dead. You are dead. You cannot fight them. So everybody leaves them alone, and they cannot talk. So they have a small slate where what they say is written down on the slate. And that's the only way they communicate with people. So, of course, they have a little role in the campaign, but mostly it was because I indulged myself in the fact that it would be cool to have insect people in the setting. I don't know why, but I think it's cool. So I will have them. And that's it. So, yeah.
How much?
A bit gratuitous, but funny.
No, it's good. It's always like it's a nice, interesting twist on things. And as far as like your research that went into it, like how much time did you once you pulled the book off the shelf and kind of went, oh, this is what I'm gonna do? Did you dive like deeper and deeper into that era in Russia? And what kind of learnings did you, if so, what kind of learnings did you find?
So, so many things. My mother is from the Soviet Union. In fact, so as a kid, I spent all my summers going to the Soviet Union on holidays, and part of my family was living at the time. It was called Leningrad, and so already I had a lot of memories of that. So I always kept, I read some history books. But before that, like I said, when I found the subject matter of the game, all the references that I already had, they all fell into place because I already had them. And I think the idea came to me because I already had all those references behind me. But yeah, I especially looked at books, yes, about Imperial Russia, the story books, and I think yes, a book by China Mieville. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Named October, where he recounts the 1917 revolution, and this helped me a lot as well for the game.
Well, it looks like a fun, interesting one shot, and like I said, the setting itself, the city itself, is such a rich setting. I can see a lot of uses for it if you are, like you said, Electric Bastion Land or Into the Odd Player, or even Karen, I suppose. Like you could twist it around there, but yeah, it's looking really good. As far as the future goes to you, I think I saw one of your recent updates. There's a game that you've been working on. It's called Golem Parade. Tell us a little bit about that, and when should we expect that Kickstarter?
So the Kickstarter, I think, which should arrive late March. I'm just finishing the text right now, but yes, it's just after Assassin's Demons and Day Gods. I wanted to make another game using Into the Odd rules, and I was thinking about maybe doing just a cyberpunk game based on Into the Odd rules, and then I saw that it was already being done by many people more talented than me. So I was okay. So maybe not such a great idea. And so same, But as you said, an interesting point, the ideas that came to you when you go outside to walk, something like that. The worst thing you can do when you are stuck is to continue staying in front of the computer, hoping that something will happen. Nothing will happen. You have to do something else. You have to read a book. You have to watch a movie. You have to take a walk in the forest. You have to talk to other people. But sitting in front of your computer for 6 hours without any ideas, it's going to make you miserable and you won't have any ideas. So, in my experience, at last. So, for other designers who may have the same problem, take that into account. But I still wanted to have something, I'd say, related to cyberpunk themes. So basically, the setting, imagine your basic vanilla fantasy setting. But the mages have become so powerful because when you look, at any D&D like, mages are really powerful creatures. So what's the next logical step? Well, they fight each other, and there a few of them remains, and they divide the world between them, a bit like corporations. And of course, they know that adventurers are dangerous things, so they killed them all. So when they need some job to be done, they create golems. So basically, when you start, you are a golem who was created by a mage, and you're sent to do missions for them. Of course, if you want, the setting will comprise some stuff that you may found as a golem, maybe change the things a bit around, maybe. Don't know. That depends on the group, but that basically that the gist of it.
And do you get to choose the type of golem? Is that all part of the character creation process, all the different variations of them?
Yeah. You have flesh golem, of course, like the Frankenstein monster. You have the Iron Head, which is basically a living suit of armor. The Scarecrow, of course. You also can be a doppelganger, so you're basically just made of dreams and magic, basically. So yeah, and you can, and yes, one of inspiration too. I don't know if you know this British comic, an old British comic, Rock Trooper.
No.
But it was a sci-fi comic. Basically, you had soldiers who were created genetically just to fight wars, but every soldier has a chip in his head that saved his personality. So when you died, someone else brought your chip and so I decided to keep the same idea. Your golem has a soul stone. So when you die, if your friends are still alive, they grab your soul stone and they can put it on their weapons.
Okay.
And then you create.
Cool.
So yeah, kind of ideas. So yes, I think it will be pretty fun. Assassins, Demons, and Dying Gods was a bit heavy, I would say. Considering the thematics, and I wanted, yes, for my next game something a little bit more light-hearted.
And what are you doing as far as are you doing hard copies or just DriveThruRPG print on demand?
DriveThruRPG, especially now, as you well know, with all this, all these stories about tariffs and trade wars and whatever. DriveThruRPG for me is the way to go for now.
It's interesting times. I know, and as you kind of alluded to, I'm in Canada. And so I've got my game that I delivered in December. And so one of the things I discovered is actually being in Canada turned out to be fairly beneficial as far as distribution goes, because of you can get to Europe just fine. But getting into the US, there's actually a trade agreement through our North America trade agreement that you could send up to $800 worth of a product to one address every single day. And so, my booklet was well under that. And so I basically hired a company here in Canada to take it, drive it over the border, and then put it into the US Postal Service routes. So it was actually, I didn't even know it existed. It took a lot of research. It's one of those 4 years to figure out kind of things, but I finally did. And so it was working really well. But now with the potential trade tariffs that are imposed on Canada, that kind of has stymied any possibility of doing that in the future. But at the same time, they don't have the processes in place in order to implement the tariffs on such small, tiny little products like mine. So for the time being, until they get the people in place, it's still status quo, but that could change at any moment if they ever figure out how to charge people for it.
We may end up, doing contraband smuggling, RPGs in the US. I feel like I live in a South Park episode now.
Well, I often have wondered about that because I live, not too far away from the American border, and I thought I could just say I'm going down for a couple of days and then just have my car just loaded with games. Nobody even know, three raccoons in a trench coat type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess just speaking of it, obviously there's a lot of unknowns in the industry, but you probably, and I hate to always talk business, but I mean, as you mentioned, you got to pay bills and you don't want to starve and that kind of thing. How have you seen it? Because I couldn't help but notice my game came out during last Zine Quest, and it seemed like a very typical Zine Quest. There's a lot of anticipation, lots of funding. Like it was like a really good environment. And then there was this zine quest, which I wanted to support a little bit better. I think you knew my dad passed away, so it's been a bit of a quiet beginning of the year for me. But anyways, aside from that, there are some games that were on Zine Quest that I was like, well, that really should have funded like much better than it did, given previous Zine Quests. And even your game should have probably brought in more, if I'm looking at it critically, as far as like what could have or what should have happened. Do you see a bit of a downturn?
That's yes, that's hard to tell because regarding my game, as I said, I almost did no marketing. I don't do any community, that kind of thing, because I think now there are so many crowdfundings. So if you don't have a way to how to say, to mobilize your fan base, so to speak, it's going to be difficult, because as you said, Black Sword is very well known. It was released by the Merry Mushmen, so I think a lot of people don't make the connection. Okay, so Black Sword, the same guy did this game. They didn't make the connection, so I think I flew under the radar of a lot of people. And each time the rare moments when I go on social media, I didn't knew this game was released, or this game was released, or this game was released. I kind of sometimes I kind of pay attention to what is going out. And yes, I don't know, is that something on the long term? Maybe a lot of people have less money too. To be fair, to be honest, the economic situation for many people isn't great, because in Europe that's maybe not as bad as in the US, but it's really not looking good as well. So I kind of, but still, we see big games who make playoff, I would say, ridiculous amounts of money. So for now, I think it's much more a problem of I'd say we in the indie community, we don't have a specific spot where people can get their information. It's all scattered. It's not that the good old times of Google Plus. Someone released the thing, it right away. Now, did you see that on BlueSky? I don't know. I'm not on BlueSky. Did you see that in X? No, I'm not on X. Did you see that on Facebook? No, I'm not on Facebook. So, or I'm not there every day. On Reddit, it's very hard to just do self-promotion, because they are very strict against self-promotion. So, yes, I think the fact that all the communications around indie games is so scattered that so everyone is building a small community, but a bit there are some overlaps, but still I don't know. I think maybe it's tied to this, but I'm no specialist. It's just merely speculation on my part.
Yeah, and I can't help but notice, like I saw a lot of the big dungeon tubers, or whatever you want to call them, all of a sudden have this like come to Jesus moment where they built their careers on Dungeons and Dragons, and their declining viewership kind of signals the fact that Dungeons and Dragons is less popular, and so you can see them, scrambling a little bit to go, oh, what about these indie games? We'll dabble in these indie games.
Of course, because I think if one was quite perceptive enough, to you can do just so many. How do I start my D&D campaign? You can do just only so many videos. Then you can, what's the best build for a ranger? But 5th edition doesn't work that way. So you cannot do so much videos about that game before you have to branch out. But it's an interesting point because I was talking with Alan Barr from Gallant Games, and he said to me he started to do role-playing games in the 2000s, I guess. And basically he said we started with Dungeons and Dragons because there was nothing else, which isn't true. There was plenty of things, but that channel Queen's Quest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he said very, very justly, Dungeons and Dragons just sucked the oxygen of the room. And I know many people still have trouble with that. We already... yes, I read, not so long ago, someone who was telling what is good for Dungeons and Dragons is good for all role-playing games. No. If you want to see a movie and 9 of 10 theaters around your house are just showing Marvel movies, you don't help other movies. You are strangling them. So, but well, that plays a part too, I guess. But yes, lack of communication, I think, is the scattering of information about all our games. So people like you do your part to help us. So thank you for that. But yes, sometimes I think it might feel like an uphill battle. But once again, if we enjoy what we do it. Maybe it will pay off, maybe not. No need to lie for ourselves, but at least we can say, okay, we did what we wanted and what we loved. So, okay.
Yeah, believe me, I have, partly, I want to make sure that my guests, such as yourself, have as many eyeballs on your game that you're producing, because like, I don't want it to be like, lost in the shuffle, but then I can't bring myself to do a clickbait title that I know will get people to watch it. Like if I said Kobayashi's new OSR game, people are going to pile in and go, what's going on here? And so they know the game, but I almost can't bring myself to do it. It's almost like I think Gabriel Quiroga, I've mentioned this a few times, the designer of Hell Knight, when we were talking, and probably off screen just before we started recording, and he was saying, the industry is like a lot of punk bands. When you're starting out, you have like, a punk night, and then there's 3 bands playing, and most of the audience is either the other bands or their family and friends.
Yes, exactly.
And that's kind of the way it goes. And then once in a while, one punk band kind of rises, like maybe like an Into the Odd, where it gets to that level where it's like starting to, or like Karen, where it's starting to compete against some of the bigger players. And the other punk bands are still doing their punk shows until they're 50, because they just love doing it. And you don't really begrudge the success of the punk bands that break away, but you could, it's that whole like, do I sell out? Do I, nobody wants to sell out like their artistic integrity, but at the same time, I could easily make a clickbait title and dive into it.
Yes, I think it would be a mistake, because I've watched a lot of YouTubers, not in the role-playing game genre, talking about that. But, basically it seems that on YouTube, do 10 minutes videos of clickbaity titles and yada, yada, yada. And basically you have throwaway channels because, okay, that's fun, I don't care. But what now seems to happen, at least to some channels, people who do longer videos, and just they do videos about subject they like. That's it. They don't care about clickbait, whatever. And these channels start to work very, very well. Channel like, Horses, like Stories of Old, who is a channel about movies. Jacob Geller, who does a lot of things about video games. He doesn't do 10 minutes videos. He does 1 hour, 2 hour, and the audience is much more is not scattered. They follow every video. So I think that's something to keep in mind. To keep in mind
Yeah.
that you don't have to sell. You don't have to sell. I think, and you have a day job, so I you know, I don't think you need your channel to survive.
No. But it's interesting. I think we're going to find out if the new version of D&D goes the way it seems to be going, which is in decline, I would say. I hope a lot of those players, just like these dungeon tubers, are kind of seeing the light finally, and they're going to come in and start to explore and discover these indie games. So that's my hope, is that there's like a lot of cool games out there. And one of the questions I wanted to circle back on is, with that said, all these like cool games, do you have like an idea book that you've got, like, 20 kind of nuggets of the game ideas that you go, I'm just waiting to develop them?
I have so I'm from the Stephen King school. Stephen King famously said, don't ever take notes. Don't take notes, because the greatest filter is time. Bad ideas you will forget. Good ideas, they will stick with you. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but so now I have some ideas that stick, and I have at least maybe yet 10 games ahead of me. But as you know, you're writing on a game, and then suddenly I'm ready for another game comes along. It's kind of of course, because the more art you do, the more art you want to do. So the more ideas you have, basically. There's no magic about that, basically. But I have a few. Yes, I have a file folder on my PC that is called the attic. Bad idea. I merely never open it, and most of the time when I open it, I think, that was not a good idea. That's what I put it here. Okay.
Yeah. I've got a giant list of like ideas that are half baked, and I'm just waiting for that moment, like you said, when you saw on the bookshelf, for it to all make sense. So I've got notes of them, but and lots of them, but for whatever reason, like, you look at it and you go, no, it's not ready yet. It needs more time to marinate and become what it's supposed to become.
Oh, when is Bug Hunters?
Bug Busters.
Yeah.
Well, my day job is like absolutely crazy until the end of May, and so my hope is to have the book. One of the things I learned on Thanks to Hola is it was a bit of a whim that I did in Zine Quest. Like, everybody was like getting excited for Zine Quest, and I was like, damn it, I can do this. Like, I'm gonna do something. So I did it. But it was very stressful because I did it in February. And like I said, up until the end of May, like, my work schedule is like, 10, 12-hour days. So I don't get a lot of time to do the work. So I had to kind of juggle that and like keep developing it throughout the whole summer. And so it was difficult. And I said, I'll never do that again. Like, I just want it like done, ready to hit send and print. So I'm very hesitant to kind of commit to a date for Bug Busters. There's like a lot done, but at the same time, I really just want it to be like ready to hit print and be able to walk away from it. And even with Thanks to Hola, there's a few things, like, I mean, to me, I developed the system, and I was like, I stumbled kind of ass backwards into it, the way like it all played out, but I really enjoy it. And to me, like you were describing with Into the Odd, it's like the boiled down version of D&D, like, essentially. And for me, the system that I'm kind of calling Doom 6 is the boiled down system of the West End Games D6 system.
Yeah.
And it all just kind of sings for me. So in my head, I'm like, I can never make another game that doesn't use it, because it just, like, when I play it, I'm like, it's so easy for me, that cognitive load. I'm just like, I'll never want to play anything too crunchy. So with that said, I guess I'm rambling a bit about it, but
No, that's cool. That's cool. Fang is just it's such a good game. Such a good game. I was glad you had an interview with GMS about it, but yeah, for I think your viewers know about the game, but yeah, good game. Good
yeah,
game.
but it's now that the system's in place, like it frees you up to actually just like manipulate it to the game that you want it to be, because it's flexible. So I'm excited about that. Like how much time do you waste often like on the mechanic part of it, and instead of the vibes and the themes of it?
That's why usually now I work with systems that already exist. I tweak them a bit, but at least I already know how it works, and I know it works. So I don't spend like you said 2-3 months. Okay, so if I use 1d10 plus 1d4 and I multiply the results, no, that's stupid. No, don't do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I want to, thank you for joining me. Assassins, Demons, and Dying Gods looks great, so everybody should get out there and check it out. It's available. I'll put all the links in the show notes of where you can get all the games and the fun stuff. And Golem Parade is on its way in March for a Kickstarter, so I look forward to seeing that. And as always, welcome you back to just chit chat about games and the industry and what's going on in the world. And always enjoy having your perspective.
Always glad to chat with you.